The highest pressure, the highest stakes. Today, 12 drivers get their chance to qualify for pole position at the Indianapolis 500. For 4 drivers, it's their chance to even make it into the big show here at the racing capital of the world. We had a full day of qualifying yesterday, and it was a thriller. And it started with a bang for Colton Herter, a huge moment out on track. He, thankfully, was okay. The team did an incredible job to rebuild this car, get him back out on track, and guess what? He made it into the Indy 500.
But Alex Palou once again demonstrating surgical precision. Not just on road courses, but ovals now. The quickest man on the day, and he was flying. The balance of his race car, absolutely spot on.
Several Team Penske cars were up there as well. No surprise, they are the defending pole sitters here at the Indy 500 with Scott McLaughlin. And it wasn't all just the big names up at the top.
Big shock. Rookie Robert Schwartzman up into the top 12 on his first ever visit, not just to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but to an oval and in a brand new team. And what about this guy? Local hero, Connor Daly, who fought all the way to the end and narrowly missed out on the top 12. But the final run of the day for the man from Noblesville, Indiana, took him up from P21 to P13. But what about this for a story? Marco Andretti down in the bottom 4 and fighting to get his name on the start list for what would be his 20th Indy 500.
Graham Rahal narrowly making the cut just as time expired. And these are the top 12 that advance to today with a chance to go after pole position at the Indy 500.
Will, you talked high stakes, you talked high stress. It's all about high speeds here today on pole day for the Indy 500. These 12 gladiators are going to go put it all on the line, trying to go for pole glory.
And these are the guys who likely got no sleep at all last night. Rinus VeeKay, Jacob Abel, Marcus Armstrong, and Marco Andretti will fight it out for the final row on the grid.
So taking a look at our Indy 500 wind graphic here as Scott Dixon rounds turn 2. That will be pretty difficult today. Not as hard, though, as yesterday, like James documented. Then the wind speed a little bit higher as he gets to turn 3. Still wind on the left side of the car as he turns in. That's going to help add understeer, add corner radius growing. So turns 2 and 3, I'd say equally difficult today for the drivers.
Yeah, I mean, a tailwind into turn 1 is never a great thing, but only 3 miles an hour, so it's not too bad. But let's jump on board with Scott Dixon and see how this number 9 machine is handling.
Well, I've seen enough, James, to answer your question. Awesome is the answer. That's how Scott Dixon is handling. That thing looks totally dialed in.
But that's 1 lap. You got to do it 4 times here at Indy. 239 almost reaches to 240 miles an hour, turns in flat, and he goes to the top with a 233.2. There is a car a little bit ahead of him. They're not qualifying that as a no-toe time. That's a time without any car within 10 seconds, but still, number 9 machine looks fast. Distracted. Oh! Scott McLaughlin in the wall. Big, big accident down off of turn 2.
That's a huge moment for Scott McLaughlin, last year's pole sitter here at the Indy 500.
Wow. Wow, looked like a massive impact when we went straight to the cockpit shot there for Scott McLaughlin.
Let's take a look at what happened. Through turn 2, just got loose.
Stayed after the power for a while as he got backwards to try to do what he could to spin the car around and ideally keep it off the wall. But guys, the left rear just pogoed. It's still in the air. It hasn't landed yet. There it is.
Wow.
That is a yard sale of an accident. Debris everywhere.
And this is what we were talking about at the top of the show with what happened with Marcus Armstrong yesterday. When you're pushing the limits and trying to get the feel for the car that you will have in qualifying, you are running that exact same tightrope that you do when everything really is on the line.
Hey, Ryan, you and I have both been through this kind of sequence on an oval. Describe what McLaughlin is experiencing here.
I mean, this is one of those deals, you guys were talking about it yesterday, where the feeling within an IndyCar especially, going that fast, it's micro inputs and the sensation of rotation into the corner. There's such a fine line between the car being dialed in positive on the nose to it just keeps rotating and you're just a passenger. And there's not a whole lot you can do with it. There's such a fine line.
Let's listen here. I'm not quite ready for that yet. Here it is.
When you watch it in real speed, it's it takes your breath away just watching it. And guys, the thing that we'd be remiss without saying at this point, right before this happened, Scott McLaughlin did go P1.
Yeah.
Oh, good sound of the impact. He did a 233.5, 0.8 of a mile an hour faster than the next best lap. Car sliding to a stop.
It's interesting, though. I'm used to hands off the wheel, crossing the chest, which is what I would normally do. Ryan, I've never seen someone grab their helmet in that way.
I'm with you. I've never seen that before, and all I could think of right away was maybe it was like a response to like the Kirkwood flip, where his visor flipped open, debris coming inside the helmet.
That's a great call.
Don't forget, there is a suite, the turn 2 suites that sit about, what, 8 feet from the wall in turn 2, and the guests that are enjoying the day over there just saw a spectacular explosion of carbon fiber, steel, aluminum. I mean, just about every material you could think of.
And we are reminded once again of the safety of this circuit, the safer barriers, the work that Dallara and IndyCar have done together to provide the drivers of the Indianapolis 500 with an open wheel car which is both fast but safe.
Alex Palou back out on track. Ryan, what do you think about this? He's already done one 4-lap run, sitting second on the 4-lap averages right now at a 2:31.9. After what we just saw from McLaughlin, how do you feel about the fastest car yesterday out there doing a second run, risking it again?
Yeah, I mean, this stuff's bouncing around in your head, and anybody that tells you it's not, they're just lying. Absolutely. You have a car that can potentially win the race a week from now. That's in your head. And then you have, these Q-sims. You have to go out. You have to know what you're going to be dealing with here in a few hours to put it all on the line for pole. But, man, there's a lot of variables just bouncing around in your head.
Ryan, let's talk track temperature, because right now it's 120 degrees, actually quite a bit hotter than the track temp that we saw yesterday with overcast skies. Now, these guys will be going for the top 12 shootout at 4 o'clock. But if you make it into the Firestone Fast 6, you're not running until 6:30 tonight. So how much can you actually learn right now? Probably for the top 12, yes, but not for the Fast 6 run.
Yeah, I think this is just this general balance. 120 is, as we call it, the danger zone. Right there, north of that, it starts getting really nasty. And this is what it's going to be at 4 o'clock. I think you peak, apex is around 3:30, somewhere there, maybe 4.
What happens at 120 degrees and above? What do you feel?
The tire's just completely oversaturated from the moment you turn in. It's just, it does not have nearly as much grip. You have to bring up the downforce levels. Another key component is this is something that can't necessarily be measured accurately, where the track temp comes up, the air is so hot just off the track, that underwing is working. It is working less efficiently because you're dealing with hotter air, which is lighter air.
So as he finishes that run, we see the wind map up in the corner there. Very different from what we saw yesterday. How does today's wind make you feel compared to some of the gusts and the complete crosswind from west to east that we were seeing yesterday?
Oh, the past few days have been sailing weather. This is absolutely gorgeous. But the track temp, the track temp's going to be the biggest issue today, no doubt. And these cars, as heavy as they are, they do not like track temp.
Josef Newgarden getting ready to go out for a run. A driver, Ryan, you've just said, looks to have a car both for qualifying and the race. He's been desperately impressive.
Yeah, he's done a really phenomenal job. And in terms of confidence, I don't think anybody's been more confident from the start of practice. He just got right after it. Same thing at the open test for the two team. And speaking of teams, Ryan, as we look at the competitors, you know, for the top 12 here, I looked at Takuma Sato as a one-off program. You know, that's a pretty impressive run. But what are some of the challenges? You're a one-off program too. What are your concerns, or how do you address the fact that it's not just you doing a one-off, it's your whole team?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of little moving parts to get right. What are some of the things that a one-off really has to focus on?
You know, there's just so many, like I've been saying, there's so many variables in Indy. It's trying to cover all the bases and trying to make sure you're not missing. It's the little scenarios, the protocols, how you go through monitoring the data in real time on the track and making sure that everybody is communicating and working well together. We're coming into what is the most competitive series in the world at the biggest race in the world for a week and a half, and you have to execute to perfection to get it all right. And that is a massive task to any group of people that come together. And even they are a super capable, competent group. A lot of guys that have been on the Penske team, for instance, guys that have been on Ganassi, Andretti. So I've worked with a lot of them in the past, and it's just tough no matter what to get a group together last minute, or not last minute, but for a week and a half, basically, a very short amount of time compared to what all these other teams have been together, what, 5 races already this season.
You know the challenge of this place.
Ooh, he had to lift there.
Hands got a little lively for Newgarden in turn 1, and when you have a teammate that just rode off a car, that gets everybody's attention.
Yeah.
Whether you're sitting in Gasoline Alley on the 2 team, or more importantly, behind the wheel here, Newgarden making some adjustments into turn 3.
See that throttle lift in 3 as well, not comfortable. Did 2 different gear shifts there. He was in 4th down the back straight, up to 6th, back down to 4th. That's a little bit atypical, isn't it, Ryan?
Yeah, it is, absolutely. And since we began talking about this, since Newgarden took the track, it's already a degree of track temp has creeped into the picture here. This is going to be every bit as difficult as wind. I really think the last row group also will have their hands full. When you start trimming, that's when it gets super tough, right? And I think today, if I were to go out there in this fast 12, I'd focus more on the consistency. I have a fast car. I'd focus more on the consistency and the lack of fall off through the run. I think that'll be the key, because this track temp is going to be brutal.
And so what are the big things that you would do as a driver and as an engineering team to focus on consistency?
Felix Rosenqvist out on track. We are into the last minute of this session. Felix Rosenqvist, quite incredibly, is up in the top 12 for the 4th year in a row. He goes so well here in qualifying in that Meyer Shank car, and while he goes for pole, his teammate Marcus Armstrong will be fighting just to make it into the Indy 500. He will practice next in the practice session designated solely for last chance qualifying. Right, out on track, Rinus VeeKay, work to do today, and what can we say about Rinus VeeKay? Never qualified lower than 7th here at the Indy 500, but today scrapping just to make the field. Kevin.
And this is his 2nd qualifying sim, and the first one did not last long, didn't even get up to speed. He immediately said on the first lap, it's way too loose, let's come in and make some changes. Dale Cohn told me before, we can make plenty of attempts. There is no concern about the number of Firestones available. They have plenty of sets to make quite a few tries at it.
And that's great to hear. Young guy, but already experienced enough to do 1 lap in a practice quality sim and say, nope, don't like it, let's come back in and fix it.
He's been in the Fast 6 4 times. Like, it's not like he doesn't know what he's doing, but on a day like today, how much can the pressure get into your mind and make you chase it?
The difference is he's been in the Fast 6 4 times with Ed Carpenter Racing. Now he finds himself at the other end of the spectrum with a small team trying to figure out where the speed is. I talked to Rinus VeeKay just about an hour and a half ago, and he told me, you know, we found something last night that we think might be the reason that we were struggling for straight line rolling speed on a race car. And I said, what's it like, the contrast of being with a team where you have never qualified worse than 7th here versus the situation you are right now? He said, you know what, it is what it is, but I'm comfortable in my role here. I feel like a leader. I feel like they're trusting my feedback, and I'm totally ready for whatever today throws at me. And I really feel like he's in a great place right now. Mentally, in terms of his leadership and experience, this guy is ready to take on the challenges of an LCQ shootout.
Indy 500 only
The
team.
car feels so weird to drive. It's so bad.
How's that been as we hear from the radio?
I'd like to revise my earlier statement because VK is in a whole new headspace right now. That is high drama mode. And Jack, I want you to answer the question on Ryan, but guys, this is a disaster right now. This is 44 minutes left. It takes a long time to make a tiny change for a tiny gain. It seems like big changes are needed right now.
Yeah, 122.7 degree, almost 123 degree track
I'm
time.
loose in the middle of the corner, and I'm loose it's everything is happening in the corners. Terrible.
And if what he told you is true and they found something last night, you got to wonder how much have they turned the car upside down in order to supposedly find the silver bullet and only have it shoot them in the foot.
I asked Renus about that exact question, and he told me that they were going to go try some things this session, and his teammate, Jacob Abel, who he'll be competing with to make the Indy 500, was going to be on a setup that they knew and trusted. So critical decisions happening already, and right now, as soon as VK pulls into a stall, they'll plug in that download cable and that intercom to Ed Nathman, his race engineer. And there has never been a more critical conversation this season for those two than right now.
Marco Andretti out on track, narrowly missed out, breaking into the top 30 by 4/1000ths of a mile an hour yesterday. Almost had the pace, so close.
And I hate to say these words, but he was robbed of the opportunity to get one more shot at the end. We all sort of questioned the lack of decision on getting Felix Rosenquist's last attempt waved off sooner.
Yeah.
That 30 seconds could have been the difference between Marco getting out and having a potential shot to bump his way in, knocking Graham Rahal out of the race. So a difficult situation for Marco. Again, one of these drivers that didn't sleep well last night.
But that's squarely in the past as Marco Andretti completes this lap wide open for 4 corners. And that's, I guess, a warm-up lap there.
Oh, that was his first
Oh, there
lap.
it is.
2:29.
2:29.7.
And at the moment,
Is that enough?
that's the best of the 4.
Is that enough? That's the question they'll be asking themselves.
Looks it. I mean, I know this is an obvious thing to say. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. You've just got to not be the slowest. So even if you're VK or Abel, it doesn't matter. Even if you go 2:27, if the other guy going 2:26, you're in.
Yes.
And so it is a function from what we've been seeing out of VK, out of Abel. You know, you also just have to finish the run. If you do have an issue, if you have some problem, you got to just get through it because someone else might be having an even bigger problem, an even worse day.
And if Marco goes 2:32, he cannot start higher than 31st. It doesn't matter. So I think it's a really important point you make, Jack, is that you just stay flat and keep it in that window of just enough, but don't take too big of a swing.
Again, and when the team had this conversation yesterday, I was hoping that we were safe. I thought we were, but it immediately turned into what are we going to do if we get bumped? And the first thing was we're going to put downforce in the car and we're just going to run for the most consistent laps we can because we at least felt like we had the pace to not be the slowest.
One of the things we noticed yesterday with Marco's runs, Jack, as he clocks in.
A little nervous there in turn 1. Sorry, James.
That's right, another time there. That was a 2:28.6, down from a 2:29.4 on lap 2 as that hybrid continues to deplete on that final run. But we've noticed he's coming off the exit of the corner and leaving lots of margin to the wall. I don't know if you guys saw that as well. Do you have any idea what might be causing that or making a driver want to stay so far off? I know track distance is a thing at some ovals, but is that a thing here?
Not that I've ever experienced. I mean, we've spoken about maybe taking a little bit of the edge off on entry, but more so for balance. And then typically when you get below the line, sometimes it makes it a little squirrely. Coming off the corner so narrow, I'm not totally sure what that's about.
Speed as we take a look at Marcus Armstrong's telemetry. Now, James, you made the point of his speed. But I'll go back to what Jack Harvey just mentioned. You don't need to go set the world on fire. You just don't need to be the slowest guy. That's it. So maybe a 2:29.7 with some decent downforce is all they should be focused on.
Well, I'm telling you, it's actually pretty comparable with what Marco Andretti was setting. His 3-lap average is actually better than Andretti had.
And you're absolutely right. You just got to be a little bit ahead of the other cars. And I know George has got an update for us on the 66.
Well, a lot of things went into getting that car back together, but one thing that they had to redo is rewrapping that car. And one crew member specifically, Kevin Weimer, stayed after to wrap that car by hand, by himself. All in all, it took about 12 hours, and he was in the garages by himself until 5 a.m. this morning, rewrapping that car, getting Spectrum on the side of that car, and getting it all done. So a major shout out to Kevin Weimer, making that car look as beautiful as it does today.
I spent 30 minutes one time putting stickers on my race car, and I was exhausted.
Dude, I used to love putting like decals on the go-karts back in the day. Like, that was a big deal.
Not for 12 hours.
I would have. I was obsessed. I love. I mean,
just
when
like
you were 12 years old, it's the coolest thing you can do with your time.
You just like the smell of the adhesive.
That's not entirely inaccurate.
Rinus VeeKay back out on track again. How important is this, guys? It will be his last run before he goes in anger to make the field.
Well, Rinus VeeKay hoping to build from strength to strength from his last run, because the first one was absolutely in the wrong direction, not giving any confidence behind the wheel, but he was able to make a big improvement after the last set of changes. And what you want to do right here is hopefully finish with 4 good ones, James, flat the whole time, and roll into that LCQ with total faith and trust and knowing what to expect.
Yeah, I mean, we just saw Marcus Armstrong bail out of a run, and if that's your last taste of the Speedway before you've got to go line up and put it all on the line just to make the show, that's not the kind of confidence building exercise you want your driver to go through. So Rinus right now doing a good job hanging on to it.
We heard from Marcus Armstrong earlier in the show today, and he was talking about how great his car was before he put it into the wall. How much frustration is there in a driver? How do you get over those emotions, knowing that the car that you have underneath you, that you have to go and qualify, is nowhere near the one that you used to have, doesn't have the same feel, doesn't do the same things, doesn't give you what you need?
I don't know that Marcus Armstrong will fully digest that reality until today is over. If he's in the show, it won't be that painful. If he's not in the Indy 500 all week, and frankly the rest of this year, he will be reminded of what he had and what was destroyed.
It wouldn't surprise me if it's crept into his mind overnight, though, because you start immediately thinking forward. You just can't help yourself. You got to try to focus on the day, but the same thing we were kind of saying about Scott McLaughlin. So devastated he destroyed a great qualifying car, but he's already thinking about what that effect is going to be come 7 days from now when we're lining up on the grid of the Indy 500.
Do you ask yourself the questions like, why isn't it giving me this when you're on the run? When you turn it in and you're expecting it to react a certain way and it doesn't, does frustration kick in then, or can you just not allow yourself to, because in your mind you know it's not the same car, it's never going to do the same thing?
The problem is you get these instant visceral notifications that it's different. So the moment you start your first run in that backup car, you'll hear it audibly if it's slower. It's not revving as high, it's not pulling the gears in the same way, and that's when you know instantly, okay, not the same bullet, but you got to get your head down and get to work and get yourself into the show.
The 4-lap averages best for the 4 drivers fighting to get into the 500. Jacob Abel, 227.7. VeeKay, 228.3. Andretti, 228.7. Armstrong, best of the lot, 228.9. 1.2 mile an hour splits Armstrong and Abel. Who can find something? Can anyone find something to make the difference going into that shootout? We, of course, have 4 drivers trying to make their way into the 500. These 12 already have, and 11 of them will fight for pole. Scott McLaughlin sidelined after that huge accident, but the others will shoot it out for pole position. We cannot wait. Please do join us on Fox for qualifying for the Indy 500.